Today what we're here is we've been waiting for about 6 to 8 weeks, maybe about 10 weeks, 10 to 11 weeks. We're trying to get some results of a Gannett Fleming study that the city has paid for to get some answers to the residents, to find out exactly, what can be done, if anything can be done to remedy the situation down on 14th Street. And I know that we have a lot of residents here, and we want to make sure that we give time for public comment. But the reason why we moved the meeting out to the public is so that you didn't have to pay for parking, and to try to make it just a tad bit more convenient for the public, because this meeting is for you, to give you the answers that you need, and hopefully we'll be able to get some direction and possibly move forward. What we have here with the administration, we have the mayor, the director of Community Economic Development, Ms. Parker, and of course the city engineer. We're going to start with the city engineer, Mr. Wayne Martin. He's going to give us a breakdown as to exactly what the work order study number 3 entails, and then we'll be able to ask him some questions from there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you turn the report that I think everyone has to the back page, and then flip one page over, you'll see a summary. It takes up about half, the spreadsheet takes up about half the page. Now, if you'll recall, work order 3 was a comparison, it was a cost analysis. It was a comparison of 2 alternatives. The first alternative was to called low mobility grouting, where they would take small diameter holes, drill down into the earth, and grout at 10-foot intervals along South 14th Street in a grid pattern, and then come back and split shot grout at 5-foot intervals where the earth took more grout than it was expected. So the design and the construction of that alternative is the $2.5 million you see there. Now, that work cannot be done without removal of the utilities that are underneath the road. So Capital Region Water has supplied us with an estimate for the removal and temporary service of water. That's the $275,000. UGI is still working on their estimate of removing the gas lines and providing temporary gas service. But I know they're working on it. They've asked a lot of questions about it. So the total cost to the city and the utility companies is actually more than the 2.8 because we don't have UGI's number. Home repair. So this is just an estimate, but in the report, Gannett Fleming's structural engineers had said the repair to the homes would range from $10,000 to $50,000. That's based on repairs to the homes that would be that have cracked foundations. It would include structural repairs where residents are having trouble opening windows, opening doors, things like that. So that's just a range. For this estimate, we used an average of $30,000 times 27 homes. We think that's a conservative estimate. Again, what we're looking for here is the total cost of the community, whether it comes from the homeowner, whether it comes from the utility company, whether it comes from the city. So the total cost of community for alternate 1 is the 3.648 million plus whatever UGI comes back with their cost. Alternative 2 was what if some of the homes that are most impacted, and I want to say most impacted because everyone on South 14th Street is impacted by the fact that the street is currently closed down. But most impacted, the ones where those fault lines, the fracture lines run what appears to be directly under their homes. If those homes were purchased and demolished and green space was put in and South 14th Street in that area was removed, resulting in 2 cul-de-sacs, if you will, what would that alternative cost? So the design, the demolition, and the construction of approximately 27 homes, and I'm not saying that these homes need to be demolished. I mean, this is just estimate for budget purposes to get funding, to find funding sources. Obviously, the final design and the inspections of each home would have to take place but that estimate came up to 1.8 million. The relocation cost for those families would be 1.9 million. That's the purchase of their homes and the relocation costs, legal fees, appraisals of the homes, all those ancillary charges that go along with that relocation cost. And so the total cost of the community for alternative number 2, 4 million, 3.947. So, just based on these numbers, now we got to look at funding sources. The alternative 1 is basically concentrates on the road. So we're looking at transportation funding. Alternative 2 is more disaster funding appropriate. So we're looking at the disaster funding options, and I'll let other members of the administration speak to the efforts in that regard. In addition to these cost alternatives, Gannett Fleming did provide us with a detail for a temporary relief. Obviously, we're not going to get $4 million next month to start this work, so it's going to take some time. While we figure out where this money is going to come from, while the design is undergoing and things of that nature, we're going to have to do something temporary, stop the temporary mitigation. We won't be able to open the road, but we want to do something temporary. And there is a detail, excuse me, that they provided. It's probably about, I think it's the first document after figures. It's titled Temporary Permeability Reduction Detail. And so this is a cross-section of the road. And you can see the curve. Top of the road would be the top, the bottom, obviously be on the bottom. So this is a detail they provided us. We presented this to Capital Region Water, who agreed to pay for this up to a certain amount to pay for this temporary repair. We're working with the contractor who's actually currently working on 17th Street for costs, what they would charge to do it. And due to the availability of some of the materials, we're going back and forth, and this detail may be altered. But what this is going to do is this is going to prevent infiltration of water. Remember, water is the mitigating cause of sinkholes. So if we can eliminate, or I shouldn't say eliminate, but limit the amount of water going into the ground, we can mitigate temporarily the sinkhole activity on South 14th Street. Any questions?
I do have a question. Go back to what we're all here for is the design, your first chart that you went over. The design, the construction, relocation of services, gas relocation. The cost of that's $3,648,000. Can you give us a breakdown from the administration exactly, when you say total cost to the community, what exactly should the residents be looking at as far as their amount that they should be looking at, either from their homeowner's insurance, or what should the residents be looking at when you say that the homeowner repair cost can be anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000, or an average of $30,000? How are the homeowners supposed to provide for that?
We have no funding sources identified to pay for anything at the moment. The goal of this work order was simply to establish what the total cost would be, so we could work from there to try and identify potential relief. And that brings us to what we're doing on Friday. On Friday, all day, we have a sinkhole summit, really the first of its kind, perhaps in the nation, certainly in the Commonwealth. We've invited our congressional delegation, our state delegation, to come and join us. And we've got a very active and exciting schedule of events. Jackie, would you like the honors of describing what's going on?
can talk to you about the summit, but I think to answer your question, before we can even attempt to look for grant money or any of the federal or state sources, they need to know the costs, and they need to know what they're looking at. Each funding source wants to know which activity, how much each activity is. So there's a piece for the road, so there might be certain things that we would look for that are just applied to road work. Then there are things that apply to utilities and things like that. Then there are things that might apply to the homeowner. So each funding source will have a different activity, so they have to know all the costs. The same with alternate two. If you're looking for demolition, construction, each funding source may or may not have an activity that would be, those activities would be eligible. So we had to come up with those costs. So we're hoping, that we can identify some sources to help with either of those alternates. And the Sinkhole Summit is designed really to bring our legislators.
Speak into the mic because we want to make sure the residents can hear you clearly. Thank you.
So the summit on Friday is basically designed to pull together all the funders. Our legislators, our federal legislators are invited. We're trying to bring attention to our condition, not only for our area, but Central Pennsylvania has other communities that are affected by sinkholes, and they're all struggling with the same issues. How do you pay for it? So we thought we would bring that attention out and talk to our funding sources, which would be the state and the federal government and any other entities that might be interested in helping and assisting with this kind of an event. Most of the agencies, federal and state, they will take a look at floods, they take a look at tornadoes, they take a look at any other disaster or natural disaster in certain ways, but sinkholes don't seem to come under that. So we're trying to say to them, sinkholes are really just as much of an event as if it were a flood or a tornado or some other natural disaster event.
Thank you. With that said, we understand you have the Sinkhole Summit on Friday, which is going to provide the residents a little bit more detail as to the legislation, trying to get funding to try to help with remediate some of these problems. Are any of these repairs to the homeowners covered by homeowners insurance?
I don't know that because each home would be different, and also do they have insurance that might cover it, like sinkhole insurance? Then they might be. It really all depends on their individual coverage. Interestingly enough, we do have people from the Insurance Commission coming to talk about insurance and what a homeowner would look for, and what expectations you could have from an insurance carrier.
On the insurance, while I'm there, will at the summit, unfortunately we're talking about the summit and not talking about what we can do now, is if a home is affected like 14th Street, would they be covered? Or is this going forward to make sure that future homes, future sinkholes will not be covered? Because 14th Street is already in that situation. So I don't know how many homeowners have been able to obtain sinkhole insurance since the 14th Street sinkhole came about. So would they be covered?
Probably not if they don't have sinkhole insurance.
I just wanted to make that clear. I don't want to give, again, false sense of hope or false sense of security. Just want to try to get as much information to you as possible so that you know exactly what direction you have to possibly go in.
We could note that we have one more work order coming from Gannett Fleming, and that is the study of the surrounding roads around South 14th Street, which will hopefully bring some clarity to residents there as to whether they are potentially facing something similar or not. And that study has been underway, and I think we're expecting results later this month. So we'll have increasing information. What we do have since the last meeting is an actual cost number, and that will help inform our overall conversation on Friday. In addition to a panel, let me tell folks a little bit about what they can find. There is an initial conversation about sinkholes, but then there is a specific conversation on federal funding options, a separate conversation on Pennsylvania state government programs, another conversation with the insurance industry, and another panel discussion on land use and development. So 4 moderated panel discussions over the course of the day. Should be a lot of information and a real chance to spotlight what has happened here to those that actually control the funding sources. We will be sending an invitation to our newly elected governor. It would be good to think that he's going to come, but at the very least, we will have our local delegation there and hopefully learning a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In alternative 2, which is the one that really, brings the hairs in the back of most people's necks to stand on end, is the design, demolition, and construction. And you had said, Wayne, that we were looking at, if we were to have to raise these buildings, you were looking at like a cul-de-sac. Would there be some homes that would be able to be saved? I read through the study where some of the homes would have to, the walls would have to be shored up. Can you go back through that? And then, I'm sorry, I think it's page 5. And can you take the time out and go through that and give the residents a breakdown as to exactly, it's page 6. Units can be
Do you have figure 3, sheet 2 of 2? Which is essentially a aerial view of South 14th Street with a series of hash marks. People see that one? At the bottom it says figure 3, sheet 2. Clear? Okay, I'll let Wayne walk you through that.
So again, these numbers, this is preliminary estimates. We haven't done complete inspections of all the homes. So where to draw the lines, there was some estimates done just based on the location of the fractures and the voids underneath the ground. But if you look at that figure, and you can see that solid, or that dotted line, the homes within the dotted line are those homes that at this point we think would be the ones that have to be raised. Now those lines can extend one way or the other, depending on final design and final inspections of those residences. But for budget purposes, for estimating purposes, this is the best we can do based on the geological study that was performed. Does that answer the question?
It answers it gives us a visual on a horseshoe type of, or the cul-de-sac type of setup, but I wanted more information on when you say that the walls can be, units can be structural bearing. I know that they're mostly, they're townhouses or adjacent houses. I don't like the word row home. They're adjacent houses. So can you give the residents, if your house is next to one of these that need to be, or the homeowner decides to remediate or raise the house, how exactly would that take place?
I think it would depend. If you understand the graphic, just so that everyone in the audience is clear, what you would basically have you would essentially be demolishing the middle section of houses with more or less a cul-de-sac coming in from Cloverleigh Terrace and one coming in from Magnolia Street. So just from the map standpoint, if it's not overly clear, 1400, 1402, 1404, 1406, 1408, 1410, 1412 will all stay, but 1414 through 1442 would be demolished, and then 1444 through 1456 would stay, and a similar line on the other side. So the party wall that would be left would be obviously repaired and weatherproofed, and again, that is a best guess of where it's not only the area which contains the fissures, but it is the area where you can see those fissures that resulted in the largest amount of sinkhole activity. If you look in the middle of the street and you see those sort of circular drawings, that's where the sinkholes in the street have really been developed, and that corresponds to the houses that have shown the most structural damage.
And if I might add, I think that party wall, if that's the concern, what would typically happen is, that's a load-bearing wall, okay, so it's not gonna tilt. That wall would be insulated, it would have to be insulated, and it would have to be parched so that it has a smooth surface, it's not gonna look rough. So yeah, that work would have to be done. And I wanna just make it clear again that there's nothing definite about this, this is just cost estimates. I mean, I was out there yesterday and I seen some, what appeared to be sidewalk subsidence and stuff like that, that's outside of this area. So, we did this is for cost estimates only. We still have work order 2, which we hope to have that report by before Thanksgiving. And this could change based on the results of that, but this is our best engineer's estimate based upon the information that we have today.
If you're a resident that lives in one of these homes that could possibly be demolished, what should we be telling these residents?
First of all, if you look at the cost comparison between the two options, it's not clear that demolition would be the preferable option. The alternate one is potentially a better way to go, and that would be repairing the homes. I realize it doesn't have the gas relocation figure in. It's sort of a wash financially, so I don't think there's any particular benefit to one alternative over the other in terms of just sheer financial numbers. But I think the message is if you already are living on South 14th Street, you're well aware of the situation and you understand the problems already.
The reason why I asked that is because I'm quite certain that once we get to public comment, the public is going to want to know, is it safe for me to stay in this home? If these homes could potentially be demolished, or we have to wait for alternative 1 to be done, is it safe at this point for me to live in my home? Or if I live in this area that's been designated, if we were to go with alternative 2, that would be the area that would, be a house that may be raised, and I live in one of these homes. Is it safe for me to be there? Is it safe for my children to be there? And that's why I'm asking. And I know that you may not have all of the questions, but we don't have the funding right now to remediate this, either from the homeowners, from grants, or from anything else. But if I'm a homeowner and I live on South 14th Street, and I see my home is in one of these numbers, that's a question I want to ask. Is it safe for me to be there? So, that's why they're here, is because they want to know, is it safe?
We had some discussion before that what we're looking at here in terms of the underlying geology is something measured in geological time over a long period. This is not the type of sinkhole formation which would swallow up whole neighborhoods at one point. This is something that's going to happen over time and is going to be actually slowed if we can control the amount of water that permeates the immediate area. The city has designated certain structures based on city inspections as being unfit for habitation. The city is also willing to come in and evaluate any home on the street if residents are concerned about the immediacy and safety-related issues. But I think you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. And other than the houses that have been placarded, the city isn't aware of any circumstances which would be immediately unsafe.
Of the homes that have been placarded, how many people are still living in those homes? About half. So again, if the homes are placarded, is it safe?
The city's opinion is that the home is not fit for for habitation, and it is not safe. At the same time, I think we are not in the business of displacing homeowners from their homes, and I think it really has to be a decision which the individual homeowners weigh. We are available at any time to come out and do additional inspections and talk about it. A lot of the issues that have been observed are deep sort of structural foundational issues, but they aren't issues that would precipitate an immediate collapse or immediately hazardous circumstance. And we know that it's going to become increasingly hazardous over time because this is a heavily volatile geological area. But that's where we are at the moment.
If a homeowner wanted to just pay out of pocket $50,000 to fix their home, would that be something that they could do? Or do we have to wait for all of the other things, such as the water relocation, gas relocation, and the design and construction to do those things?
They certainly could. One of the homeowners actually did foundation repairs on or about the time of the sinkhole. We have reports in our codes, permitting and things like that. So they could realize that if a fund source becomes available where alternative 2 is the direction the city goes, they'll be compensated for the fair market value of the property, not the fair market of the value of the property plus the money they just put in to repair it.
But we do have an example of at least one home that was fixed up and is fit for habitation, at least structurally. So yes, the structural problems can be addressed. In alternate 1, there's a range of what it might cost to repair the homes, but they are addressable and they can be fixed with money. But just because we're fixing the home doesn't mean that we're doing much about fixing the underlying geology unless we start going with the compaction, grouting, and then it becomes this very extensive endeavor. So I guess homeowners would have to weigh.
So what you're saying is that the resident would have to work in conjunction with the grouting and underpinning that would have to take place. So if the resident just said, I'm going to take care of my property, that's not going to wholly make that particular property whole. There will still have to be some other work, geological work done to make that property whole.
The work that's under alternative 1 is not to underpin the homes. That's the work that would be done by the city would go onto property, front yards. So I guess the answer to the question is yes, that work would have to be coordinated because of the excavation and the shoring and things like that of the excavation. But they're not, one wouldn't have to wait for the other.
If I lived on 14th Street, how long do I stay in limbo? How long? I think that's another question that we would like to see if we can get any type of answer to.
The upper limit, the temporary detail that we have is a 1 to 5 year mitigation. Other than that, it's going to be driven by the funding.
Thank you.
So I just have a few questions. Now, looking at alternative 1 and alternative 2, it appears to me at a first glance that alternative 2 might actually have sources of funds that will result in homeowners paying less out of pocket versus the types of funds that would come for alternate 1. Do you have a sense at this point of what the possibilities are?
If your question is just what would the homeowner have to pay more out of pocket?
Yeah.
Probably you're probably correct. However, when you're talking about relocation, there are other expenses that, and relocation costs. When you relocate, it is like eminent domain. So basically, you're given fair market value for your property and some relocation costs to go to a similar and value-wise place. Okay, so but it's the cost of moving, uprooting, and everything like that. That's a kind of a personal cost. If you get to stay in your own home, then maybe out of pocket it probably it depends. When you're just asking though about what might be more available, I'm not really sure. The way we're looking at our funding sources, we may be able to find both. Either one. I mean, I don't think the funding source. We're not really sure. We're just looking at every single avenue, and it does appear that there could be some funding for each of those alternate modes. I don't know if it'll be enough. That's the other thing. So what if we only find, what if we can only find 1 million or 1.5 million?
Now, you mentioned that a lot of the units are habitable, and as long as they're habitable, it's up to the individual person whether they choose to relocate or not, right? But theoretically, if I understand sinkholes, you could have a house that's habitable but still be at risk of being part of this sinkhole. I'm sorry, I don't have the technical sinkhole terminology. So, do you have a sense of how many homes may be habitable but maybe also dangerous?
Well, the homes that were inspected, 9 of them were deemed structurally unsafe. Does that answer the question?
I think if you look at the map, you can see the fissures that were identified in the initial study. Those are the sort of diagonal lines that were lines that sort of cross through the street. Those are the areas where Gannett Fleming felt the highest risk of sinkhole activity was, because those were the actual fissure lines. But none of that speaks to the sort of immediacy of how long it's going to take a sinkhole to develop. All that we know is that there's a high likelihood of continuing sinkhole activity in the area, but that can be very slow and very gradual over the next, 1,000 years. And it will be, and that's what they're saying. The only way to mitigate that or slow that down would be to literally go and fill the voids underneath the ground, which is this compaction grouting concept. And even that is merely mitigating the voids that we have identified. It would not stop new voids from appearing necessarily in the future.
And I did want to point out that although Harrisburg has zones where we have this limestone geology, it's prevalent throughout eastern and central Pennsylvania. On the West Shore, there's a lot of homes over limestone karst geology. It's just unfortunate for us that, particularly the residents, that these sinkholes developed when they did, and not 50 years ago or 100 years from now.
I think if you take a look at Lebanon and in Palmyra, that took about over 3 years to where they are now. They kept fixing it and then kept coming back, but those homes are still there on top of a fissure that county is not addressing. So those homeowners are left with, should they stay or go, and it keeps opening up over and over again. So it's hard to tell. It really is hard to tell, but that was very slow progression, but they keep opening up in the same area.
Have the homeowners in Palmyra, are they still there? Are they occupied?
If you look over on Cherry Street, in that area, that's a very nice residential area. Most of them are still there. Most of the homes are either a small mortgage or they're paid for, and most of them are not going to move because they know the homes are worth about $1.
I just had a question or two about the sinkhole summit. Is the cost of that $40 or $60, and is any of this 14th Street problem going to be addressed, whether, how they may fit into the bigger scheme?
The cost is $40, but for the residents, we've underwritten their attendance. So anybody who would like to attend is welcome. And then we have a breakout session at lunchtime. So it's a working lunch. You're welcome to eat lunch, and then with the local service providers such as the Red Cross, our Coalition on Homelessness, I'll be there, our housing people will be there just to talk and kind of talk through this. Again, we don't have any answers, but it would be helpful just to kind of, talk through it and find out how the neighbors are doing and maybe, making them feel like they have some more information also. But they're welcome to stay for the whole, listen to the whole scene.
So it's to address things going forward and our situation.
Well, and it's to address basically our situation by bringing attention and awareness that, we need funding. Not only our community, but other communities need funding for these kinds of situations.
And I may have missed some of the discussion from the state, but in terms of, can this be declared a state of emergency? Has that been discussed?
That is a topic that will be discussed. In fact, we have a representative of FEMA that is going to be leading a whole panel discussion on just that. So the concept of the summit was not only to hopefully provide answers to residents of Harrisburg, but also to spotlight Harrisburg to the state as a whole. And we have registrants coming from all over the Commonwealth to come, because I think encouraging people to understand that this isn't just Harrisburg's problem, but it is really a statewide problem, will help in the argument for identifying funding sources moving forward.
So there may be some opportunities in terms of the 14th Street residents to be eligible possibly for FEMA funds if we can get a declaration. And can we get a declaration?
The way FEMA funding works is there's certain levels, certain thresholds that have to be met for disaster relief. So this would have to fall under an existing disaster. There has been discussions with the consultants as to whether or not the rising and falling of the water table during Tropical Storm Lee could have accelerated and contributed to the sinkhole activity. And if you look on page 2, they cite a lot of, in the top paragraph on page 2, they cite a lot of sources that fluctuation of groundwater tables, and water tables recharging and things like that can contribute and cause this activity. So that may be an avenue that seems logical. As far as this in and of itself being some sort of disaster, it wouldn't meet those state and federal thresholds.
How widespread across Pennsylvania is the sinkhole problem? Do you have any idea?
It's as far as dollars, I don't have those
No, I mean,
numbers.
as a geological phenomenon, how widespread across the state, do you have any idea?
There are maps. I don't have any of them here, but I think we can pull one up, one of the state maps, and maybe link it on our website. And you can sort of see it just sort of fingers out throughout the eastern and central Pennsylvania. I can't, I don't, maybe 10%, 15%, and I'm just guessing based off my recollection of what that map shows.
Which is very crowded.
Also, one of the speakers is from the Pennsylvania Geological Survey Division, and he's, kind of an expert on the topography and the geology, and he's going to be speaking to that at the summit.
So other than Palmyra, do you know of any other communities that are experiencing this and may have some answers that, or some at least tactics that we might use or think about using?
I don't know. I have a list in my office. I don't know off the top of my head, but we are trying to, kind of collate some of that. But that's why we kind of sent the invitation out to every county got an invitation. So we'll see what the response, is, and have some of them probably come and visit.
excuse me, I have discussed this with the consultants that Paul Myra is using. They're going with the compaction grouting, the alternative one. I'm not exactly, this was about maybe 3 weeks ago when I spoke to them, and I'm not sure where they are in that process, but it does take time for final design and things like that. It's a specialty construction type service. As far as other communities in Pennsylvania, Lehigh Valley, they've had some sinkhole issues in the past. They actually developed ordinances and things to address the planning to prevent this. You know, it's not going to address the community that's already impacted, but it's going to address future development and things like that. So we are looking at some of those ordinances, and we should be seeing those soon, I'm sure.
That's a panel discussion as well.
And it's probably in here somewhere too. I didn't get a chance to totally read through it. And again, I apologize for being late. But in terms of responsibility going around, like insurance companies, municipality, the homeowner, we have any idea of who does what, where money comes from, who's going to end up footing the bill for all this?
Yeah, we have not, no, is the answer. I think one lesson that hopefully will come from this is actually the importance of getting sinkhole insurance if you're in an area which is impacted before the disaster strikes and the sinkhole strikes. There have been individual conversations with insurance companies. We're going to have a whole panel on insurance, so I think we'll learn a lot more from the overall conversation on Friday. We're also planning to film it and televise it on Channel 20, so if residents or anyone can't come, there'll be another avenue to view it.
Just one more question for you. How prevalent is the product of sinkhole insurance? I mean, is this a new thing, or is this something they're just developing and they'll be talking about the development of it, or is it something that's already in place?
It's in place, it exists. We're going to have various insurance providers talk about it. It's not generally that expensive. It's not the solution to everything, obviously, but it is an option. And it's one that homeowners should consider if they live in a area affected by the limestone geology.
And so when you're purchasing a home, how are you going to know that you're on top of one of these sinkholes? That's usually not.
You gotta be a scientist.
Yeah, in Harrisburg, it's essentially anything, it's the area south of 83. So if you live south of the 83 overpass or highway, that is the limestone geology area. And it has taken this circumstance to really bring that to the forefront, but that is the reality. So it affects the entire area.
And so, sorry for asking all these questions. And so what does that do to the property values in that entire area? What does that do to future development going forward?
Go grab one.
Well, yeah, certainly, this will be part of the development process going forward. We'd like to see it part of the mortgage process going forward, so that, just like flood insurance, it's something that these lenders will look at and require. It's not as expensive as flood insurance, I can say that, so it won't have the impact as being, in a floodplain would on a property value.
Are we going to have realtors there too? Are they going to be part of it? Because when you're buying a house and you're dealing with a realtor, they're not going to bring that up. Unless they...
We don't have a panel with Realtors planned for the Sinkhole Summit, but that's outreach that we will continue to do. We have a panel with the insurance industry and one on land use development ordinances, and the city's going to continue to do that. I think it's important to note that just because you live in an area of limestone geology, which is tens of thousands of acres throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, doesn't mean that you are suffering any ill effects from that, or that it is going to impact your home value. It is something that you ought to know and to take into consideration when purchasing a home, for sure. So there's an educational component that has to happen. But I don't think, other than in this immediate area, that's sort of why we have an additional work order. It is to determine how much of an aberration South 14th Street is from the surrounding blocks. And we're going to know more when that report is released before Thanksgiving.
All right, so this is my last question. And I saw, how much is aging infrastructure, the old beat up terracotta pipes, a factor in just not this area, but in a lot of these sinkholes?
It's a real factor. So, but this is different than, say, the 4th Street sinkhole that happened a couple of years ago. That was a sinkhole that resulted from aging infrastructure and the washing away of soil through sewer lines and whatnot that had aged. This is a different scenario. The underlying cause of what's happening at South 14th Street is deep, deep, deep in the ground, and it is exacerbating the problem of aging infrastructure. For sure, the gas companies have been out. Every old pipe there is more subject to breaking when it hasn't been maintained. So we're seeing that. But this is not essentially an aging infrastructure issue. This is a geological issue.
Thank you for your explanation to my colleagues' questions. But I really understand that we're having the sinkhole summit on Friday, which is wonderful. But again, the purpose of this meeting is to get the answers that I know that the residents are waiting for. How does this affect me? And that's why we invited the residents, because they want to know, all those wonderful people that are going to come to the summit to discuss what's going to happen in the future and how we can remediate this in the future. And it may bring some answers to this problem, but it doesn't answer the elephant in the room. How does this affect me now? What can I do right now? Where do I go right now? Do I stay? Do I go? I have a mortgage. You have on the back here, the last page, and it has the parcels, and I appreciate you going through the time of putting this in here. And you have the assessed value, appraised value. We know that there's some appraisals that have to be done. There's relocation assistance, and the total with the acquisition and relocation. Can you give us an idea as to why this was included? I understand that we needed to find the assessed amount of the homes, but when I see acquisition and relocation assistance, if I'm Joe homeowner at 14th Street and I look at this and it says acquisition and relocation assistance, that's telling me that the city's going to help me move. So can you bring some clarity to this chart back here?
That would be a typo. I don't see where it says that, but I'm sure that, okay, yeah, that's okay. The city doesn't have the resources to do any eminent domain or any relocation assistance, so it's not coming from the city. The purpose of this chart is to get an established sense of what the cost would be so that we can apply for outside funding. There should be no mistake about the city's ability to deal with this crisis by itself. It doesn't exist. Now, if we can tie into Tropical Storm Lee, disaster funds, of which there are millions of dollars yet to be accounted for, then maybe we have a potential funding source. If we can identify other funding sources, fine. But this is to determine, this is to have a sense of cost before we go and appeal to all the powers that be, both in the state or federal level. So I don't want anyone to be of the understanding that the city is going to be able to solve this problem by itself. It can't do it. It doesn't have the resources. We feel that our immediate responsibility is to do the road improvement in conjunction with Capital Regional Water, which isn't even opening the road. All it is doing is making it safe for emergency passage and make it less permeable to water and try and slow down any additional sinkhole development. That is occurring. But we need to all work together to draw attention to this problem and to try and bring additional funding. So I would encourage the residents and other interested citizens of Harrisburg to come out and speak directly, for instance, to Congressman Scott Perry, who will be at the Sinkhole Summit in person, and tell him why it is important for the federal government to fund this, to speak to Rob Teplitz, who will be there to talk about why it is important for the state to fund it. Those are where the resources are going to come from. And we're going to have an opportunity for one-on-one conversation with those decision makers, both for the state and the federal government.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You used the word eminent domain, which is, a big ugly word that no one likes. When you use those words and everybody wants to know, is the city going to take my house, raise my house, pay for my house? Is the city on the hook for the sinkhole? How much of this is the city's responsibility? Or is any of this the city's responsibility? Because I know if I'm a resident of South 14th Street, the next question I'm going to have, are they going to flatten my house? Are they going to pay for my house? I know that you said we have no funding for it, but after the overall responsibility, where does it lie? Is it my problem, or is it because it's a geological problem? Is there a situation that may arise in the future where there will be that big elephant in the room, the eminent domain, that will come into an effect where the city would there be ever a situation where the city would take 100% responsibility of the areas and raise those homes and make a park out of it?
We're really far away from any raising of any homes or any demolition or anything along those lines. This is obviously the community's responsibility. It is all of our responsibility collectively. That's why we've tried to calculate the costs in terms of costs overall to the community. We have a responsibility to try, especially as elected officials, to be going out there and identifying funding sources. The way this would work would be if we were able to identify an effective funding source, we would bring that right back to this committee for an additional conversation, and maybe that funding source would be more inclined to support option 2 rather than option 1, depending on how we identified it. So that will have to be a continuing conversation, and as you see just from the numbers alone, it's not clear that demolition would be less expensive than fixing the holes, filling the holes. So that's where we are.
Thank you for your explanation. Now, the reason why I asked you that is not necessarily to put the city on the spot, but it's just basically to answer questions that I've heard. The thing is that when something happens to you, as Americans, we've gotten to the point where we're complacent, where we feel as though our government should step in and help us out and take charge when things become larger than what we can expect and things that we can't handle. So that's why I asked that question. How much is the city, culpable for? Which we understand is not the city's problem. However, as a resident, I'm living in South 14th Street and I'm looking to the government to say, this is overwhelming. I can't handle this. And time again, the government has been able to step in, and I understand that that's what your summit is for, to try to get the government to step in to help out. But if somebody lives on South 14th Street, they're looking at the immediate government, which is at Harrisburg City, and not understanding why can't we do anything, and what am I supposed to do? The other thing I wanted to touch base on before I conclude here, or turn it back over to my colleagues, is the 3 to 5 year time frame. Realistically, in 3 to 5 years, what are we supposed to do?
I would 1 to 5 years is the life expectancy of that temporary detail. That's all I was referring to.
The road.
The temporary
of the road.
The patch.
Okay, of the road. But in the time frame that the 3 to 5 was, I believe, the funding, the time frame that it's taken Paul Myra to finally start working on their problem. It's been 3 years since the Paul Myra sinkhole opened up, and they've been working it's been about 3 to 5 years that they are dealing with. So if you're a resident, you're at 14th Street, we're almost at a half a year, almost coming up on a year. What do I do? What do I do? You know, that's a question that I'm quite certain that our residents want to know. What do I do?
Well, that's a deeply personal choice that individuals are going to have to weigh. It is not, do you stay and try to continue to make a life of it at 14th Street, or do you have the ability or the resources to move? The city, without identifying outside funding sources, doesn't have the ability to purchase homes or relocate individuals or do anything. In Palmyra, none of that has been done. You could make a decision as an individual homeowner to go ahead and shore up your foundation and continue to make a go of it. You could say, enough is enough and move on. And I think you've already seen some people move, others continuing to stay. This is a tragic situation. It is a natural disaster. It's something which will hopefully bring us together as a community to try and bring additional resources to bear. But it is a very expensive problem. These numbers are staggering, right? I mean, this is a tremendous amount of money. This is $4 million just to fix a portion of one street, which, that's an enormous sum. But we are doing what we can to try and convince those that do have the resources to open them up, and it's going to probably take more than just Harrisburg. It's going to take Harrisburg and Palmyra and other communities all banding together and saying this needs attention.
One final question that I'm quite certain that the residents have, and they may get frustrated when they get to the mic. The assessed value of my home. If I try to sell my home, can I sell it realistically? Realistically, can we sell the homes?
Realistically, no. Who would buy a home on South 14th Street? Sure. So that you're not telling the residents anything that they don't know, and that's similar to what Jackie said about Palmyra. You can have a big, beautiful home, but nobody wants to buy it. So your decision is to stay and make a go of it, or not. But the real loss, the sort of incalculable loss of what that home's value was and what it is now post the sinkhole, that's a loss that's being absorbed by the homeowners of those properties, and it is a tragic thing.
It is. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to now turn this over to do my colleagues have questions?
There are two questions I forgot. But piggybacking off of that, looking at the assessed values, I was trying to look up the properties, what they were previously purchased at, but it looks like the assessed values are based on like the really old assessed values for those homes, right? So the compensation the families will be getting, if we get the funds to do all of that, will still be short of what they'll actually need to find a comparable home someplace else in the city or whatever, right? Are there
eminent domain? There would be an appraisal of the home, and it would be fair market value. These cost estimates here, it would be what we used was the assessed value times the common level ratio to get close to where an appraised value, but this is just cost estimates.
And these are the estimates that are being used for the grant applications, or for the funding searches, right?
Correct.
So this is probably closer to what we're going to end up getting if we get anything. Because that's what we'd be asking for, right?
Again, like I said, we would be actually doing an appraisal for each home. You have to do that for
And a question I forgot to ask earlier was, are we approving home repair permits for these homes, like when they come in? And
I don't think no one has applied except for that person.
Well, you said someone done.
The one that did the home repair was pre-event, if you will, pre this year. I mean, there was a previous sinkhole in 2007. At some point after that, they had a foundation repair. We have a record of their permit application. It details of the work that they did. But since the sinkhole activity, we don't have any record of any permit application to do any foundation repairs or home repairs.
Have you administratively decided what you would do if people are making those requests?
I don't know that the city could stop someone from repairing their home. We couldn't do that.
The question that I had, the final question I had is, who can declare eminent domain?
The redevelopment authority.
It's the redevelopment authority has that power.
Okay. Because I didn't know if it was state, federal, or if it came all the way down to local.
And they would only declare eminent domain if they wanted the property, right?
Eminent domain is a process. We use that, like you said, it's kind of a big ugly word, but I'm just using that as the process. That's the process that would be used, but you don't use that process until you're ready to go forward with a strategy. You're not able to just
We're not, no one is trying to take anyone's home that doesn't want their home taken. That is not here. If we were able to identify a funding source that would support, let's say, demolition and the creation of a new green space, but not the compaction grouting proposal, then we would take it back for conversation, and we'll have the conversation then.
Right, so when we went through these calculations, this is the process that's used, and that's, the things that come into consideration, like a relocation assistance, what people look for when you're doing that process. So that's why we came up with these calculations and the process that calls for that. So we don't want to miss anything like insurance, legal fees, those kinds of things.
Thank you very much. I'm actually going to open it up to public comment, and we're going to give up our mic so that the administration can answer any questions that the public may have. And we're going to ask them to line up right here if you have any questions, so that you can ask the administration any questions that you may have.
Yeah, I want to know how is it that the city can come in with money to fix a pool that's been down for years, but they can't get any money from residents that got a house to sink. And you tell me how y'all come up with a plan like that?
The money that came for the pools was from our community development block grant funds that had been set aside prior to the event happening. So, and also those funds are very limited in their use and scope.
So you tell me it makes sense to fix a pool instead of trying to help the residents that's out of their house?
That money was already set aside in the budget that was approved by council for the pools before the event happened.
All right, my next question is, you said
It's also a lot less than we're talking about here, just so you know.
temporary fix the street, right?
We are going to temporarily fix the street.
Why would you waste money to temporary fix the street that was already done, and you already had a truck before the one was already fixed? Does it make sense to waste money on that, or take the money and do some good with it?
We're actually not planning to reopen the street. We're just simply trying to put a layer on the top of the street to prevent water from permeating the ground and causing additional sinkhole activity.
If water got up under the street and it was already fixed, what make you think it's gonna stop it there? It's not gonna stop it, it's gonna sink up under it anyway, so you're just wasting money putting the street there. You might as well leave it like it is. You got further other issues out here, they're putting a concrete street out there, whatever you're gonna do, you might as well just leave it alone, I mean, it's wasting money.
I would add that Capital Region Water is paying for that temporary fix, and the primary purpose of it is to protect the utilities that are underneath the earth.
All right, you saying that, but you tell me, you're gonna drive a snow blower down to plow the snow. But I live there, been living there for years, I can't park my own vehicle. It makes no sense whatsoever to me.
Yeah, I was there 2 weeks ago, we gained 2 sinkholes. We just done there, with their equipment. Huh? Speaking of Mike, you want to hear what you got to say, because I do too.
And then the next thing is, you're saying about these houses with damages. What about the rest of the houses that you never checked, that I know have damages to it? Now, does it make sense if you want to tear down property, if you tear down 2 or 3 houses here and leave 2 or 3 houses standing, instead of making sense to tear the whole block down, that you can start over and have property redeveloped? That makes more sense to me.
Well, it costs a lot more money. I think the estimate was done with the demolition of as few houses as possible, rather than demolishing all 54 houses on the street.
Okay, when you start doing it, when you start digging, what you think it's going to do to the other property owner? As far as moving gas lines from the front to the back. That's what's causing the problem now when we're digging the ground up and moving the clay, and that's why the road is getting them anyway. So when you start doing the digging, what you're doing, you're going to cause more property to the other property ain't got no damage to it, so y'all say. So again, when it makes sense just to double the whole block, let's start over.
It could. That would be, again, a much more expensive proposition. You probably have to take the estimate and double it.
It doesn't mean like you don't have the money to do it anyway. You got to come with the money, so when it makes sense to get money to do the whole block instead of just a couple of houses.
You live on the end, right?
I live on the end.
So the proposal here is preserving your home because your home has not been affected foundationally by the...
Actually, partner was on there yesterday and looking if my house is affected or not. And that's all I got.
I probably could stay in here all night and have y'all going on this. To start off, first of all, I don't understand when you say alternative 1 is better than alternative 2, because you don't have the price yet for UGI, and I'm sure that's the
Well, I don't think we said that. I think we said it is not conclusive which alternative would be better. So we're not proposing one over the other. We're saying that potentially certain funding sources might be willing to pay for one alternative and not the other alternative. So we want to be able to apply for every possible funding source that's out there. But we are not suggesting demolition over compaction grouting or compaction grouting over demolition. I think we said the opposite, which is that actually, the costs are comparable. So there isn't a clear, less expensive choice.
So when you say about applying no cost, what you're just saying, when you have the 27 homes as a price for demolition, why don't we have a price for the whole block as demolition as well to provide for the Sinkhole Summit on Friday? It's a ballpark figure.
Exactly.
It's interesting that you think we should demolish more homes rather than fewer. I think this was the recommendation of the engineers at Gannett Fleming to have the smallest footprint as possible, as warranted by the actual geology and the damage that the sinkholes have caused up to this point. It is absolutely true that the entire area is over the same type of underlying geology, but the fissures and the sinkhole activity up to this point is more concentrated towards the center than the ends of the road.
But you don't have the alleyway or Magnolia Street yet on that report.
In the case that you would tear down the homes, some of them and not all of them, what would you do? Leave it just with land, with nothing there ever rebuilt?
You'd have sort of two cul-de-sacs on either side and an empty green, in a green space park type situation in the middle. So
what would make you think that I would want to still stay on the corner there and have me living like that there? What made you think I wanted to live like that? Trust and believe, if I had extra money and $1, I would have been more.
So your position
are you living in a situation that what we're going through? Do you know what we go through day and night out there? You don't have a clue. I'm young, but I'm aging because of the situation. And I'm not going to continue to live out there like that in the process. It's taking too long. You go home every night, you enjoy your family, and you wake up the next day and you are A-OK. But trust and believe, on South 14th Street, that's not the situation for us. And I had 3 children, okay? And my children worry day and night. My children get up throughout the night and they're concerned. Do your children wake up in the middle of the night and question you what's going on, if they're going to be okay? And then tell me you want to move gas lines possibly temporarily and water lines. So we're going to go move them to the back of the alleyway and dig the back of the homes up to cause more damage. And so we just continue to dig, so when the end process is finished, that I'm going to continue to stay at my property that at this point I don't even want to be there, but my property has not been condemned currently now because I never allowed you in my home at this point. What makes you think that I want my house to continue to look like that and I can never sell my house because it's not worth a penny? And then I continue, me as well as my neighbors, to pay full price for taxes. For what? And the house ain't worth nothing. Can you answer that? And then we ain't never gonna get $1 from nowhere where it can be done as far as a mortgage relief. Something. I don't wanna live there no more. And I won't live there no more. But somebody has to give $1 in somewhere because it's not our fault. You guys say it's not your fault. Where's the money coming from? It is taking too long. I go to work stressed, I come home stressed, I'm on night stressed, I don't get my sleep properly, and this is going too long. Do you have any response?
I wish it could move faster. I empathize fully with everything that you're saying, and I'm sorry about the situation. I think it's devastating and horrible, and I would just hope that you would understand that we are trying to do whatever we can to try and find resources to address the problem.
In the case that you demolished the 27 homes, 1401 to 1409 got voids 40 to 50 feet. So if you demo 27 homes, what are you doing about the sidewalk in that area that has the 40 and 50 feet holes, but you saying the homes could stay there?
These were just possibilities for the purpose of discussing funding. If we were able to determine a source of funding to deal with demolition, I think we would certainly consider the possibility of demolishing even more homes. I think we took a sort of best guess of what would need to be demolished based on the information that Gannon Fleming did. I hear your position loud and clear. You would like your home also demolished subject to eminent domain and be a part of the solution and not left on the end. That was not the recommendation of Gannon Fleming. Their goal, I think, was to try and address the problem at with taking into account what would be a reasonable, overall cost. But if we can identify funding sources for demolition, I don't think we've made a final determination on which houses would stay or not stay. So there's still the opportunity to have a different plan.
And then when you say about the geological study, on South 14th Street, we only studied the street, the left side and the right side of the sidewalk. We ain't studied no private property of nobody. So anybody that has a fence or without a fence, you have no clue currently they could be sinking. And furthermore, the more data that you guys are getting, I didn't appreciate it. I understand you don't have no money or whatever you guys say. However, I don't appreciate that the corner properties, the sidewalk was not tested. When I got damaged up and down the whole sidewalk where I live at, as well as I know the other end does. So it doesn't make sense why you tested the street, but not my sidewalk. And when I say my sidewalk, I guess you would say partial is mine and partial is the city. And if we had testing done, it should have been done. Because the street's not going to tell you that I got any idea of what's going on my sidewalk, the damage I had that was not there before. So why are we not testing the sidewalk? Because we have no money, right? So that leaves me in limbo to continue to live here until it drops or whatever occurs.
I understand your position, which is that we should expand the area of proposed demolition to be the entire street and not just the middle of the block. I hear it loud and clear. I understand what you're saying.
And when you did the inspections, we did inspections back when, July, August, I can guarantee you, as time goes and winter has come and arriving, and you would go ahead through every home at the end of the day, you couldn't tell me every home don't have damage. I can guarantee you it does. Whether you gone in them or not, whether you approved them and said they were A-OK, I can guarantee you at the end of the day, every home has damage, whether you want to realize it, whether the city officials want to realize it, or a homeowner. I can guarantee that.
Is there any kind of way the city can give the people on 14th Street some kind of tax break, some kind of relief on their taxes? Why should they have to pay full taxes in the condition they live in?
It would seem to me very possible to do a reassessment of 14th Street in light of the sinkhole that would provide tax relief, and we can take that up with the county. I'll try and get you more information on that.
Because what if everybody on South 14th Street just got and walked away at the same period? What would they do to the city's budget?
Good evening. My name is Mr. Boyd. I have a thing about South 14th Street because I have a grandson that lives right where you do. I don't talk about it much, but what you're going through is what we go through in this city with the plight with the homeless. Congratulations. You possibly will be the new homeless in the city of Harrisburg if it is up to this administration. He cares nothing about you. We talk about grant money in the sums of hundreds of thousands of dollars. We say we have no money, but then again, brothers and sisters, we have money. We have houses in this city that could be given to you, that this administration could help you, but they turn their backs on you just like they turned their backs on the homeless of this city. Honorable Mayor, I can say to you, and I can also say to you, Madam, this evening there is something that needs to be said about unification and unifying our good city. We must come together as a family. Remember, Mayor, once again, we are not in Midtown. But if this ever would happen in Midtown by the river, excuse me, you would make something happen immediately. All I can say this evening to you and to this administration, once again, you're looking at someone that knows the real story. That's why I sit back and listen. Mayor, I am ashamed of you. Mayor, I could not understand why you could not help these people. She was definitely right. This takes too long. You know better, and I'm saying once again, I am shocked. You wouldn't even do this in Baltimore, Maryland. You understand what I'm saying? But you have the smirk on your face, Mayor. But that's okay with me, because what happens in the dark comes to the light. But once again, Mayor, I say I am ashamed of you and the council. They need to come up with some kind of resolution. It is taking too long. Do you want them to be under the bridges like I sleep with the homeless? Because guess what? That's what he has for you, nothing. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Bill Cluck, and I'm here today as a private citizen. I have a series of questions and a couple of comments. When, can I be heard? Is this coming through? Yeah. Yes, speak up. When is the temporary road repair going to occur?
As early as next week, they'll start on it. There may be a change to the detail because some of the materials are unavailable because of the weather conditions, so we're trying to work with the consultant to modify the detail to still provide the temporary relief with different type of paving materials.
Capital Region Water, when you came to us and we agreed to fund the temporary repair, felt pretty strongly no snowplows. That street you should not have any heavy equipment going down that street. And since it's not going to be open to vehicular traffic, you shouldn't have snowplows going through. And we feel pretty strongly about that. You said the work order 2 for 12th and 13th Street, you're hoping to have that by Thanksgiving.
Before Thanksgiving.
What about the housing authority property, the other direction? Have they requested any assistance or studies?
What housing authority?
No.
What
We
housing
have several
authority?
conversations with the housing authority, and they were not interested in participating. If they, they're gonna consider that on their own if they want to do it.
What housing authority you talking about?
The other side of 14.
Homeowners? They turn half of it down, they retire half of it down and put more homes out there. They get ready to tie it down and put more homes out there, and the people living there, they moving in Jackson Lakes apartments.
Okay, well, when they go in for building permits, you'll ask some questions. Do you have a database of the 53 homes on 14th Street in terms of how many are absentee landlords and a list of the landlords if it's not owner occupied, a list of tenants if it's only occupied by a tenant? Do you have some kind of means to communicate other than going door to door?
I mean, what we've done is gone door to door, and then we also have a list we can go in and see who the owners are. If it's a privately owned or a company or whatnot.
Well, have you communicated with them to invite them to the summit on Friday?
The landlords, no, just doing door to door to the homeowners.
So you haven't gone door to door about the summit?
We passed out flyers and we've gone door to door periodically to find out how the neighbors are doing.
Are any of them in Spanish?
We have interpreters that have gone and called those who are Hispanic, who speak Spanish.
Good. I appreciate that. Rather than seeking a reassessment through Dauphin County, which would lower the value of the property for whatever the financial assistance, legally, Neil, does the city or the school district have the power to waive the property taxes rather than go through a reassessment process?
Thank you.
I don't know, but that's something we can explore. It's certainly a takeaway from this evening. That was just a thought on, I think they would certainly be subject to reassessment, but if you're saying that's perhaps not in the homeowner's best interest, well, then that's a whole other question. Would the solicitor like to comment on whether or not we can or cannot, we can research it, I don't have an answer to that.
I don't know the answers. The question's not come up. I will tell you that I'm not optimistic because they didn't by the assessment method under state law. There's a uniformity of tax method that we're supposed to follow, and waivers are generally not favored, but I would just have to see. If the state law authorizes it, we can do it. It's that simple. We can only do what the state has authorized us to do, and we may have to go get our own application from the state in order to do that. But I think we'd be willing to do that. That's if we're.
I promise we'll explore that.
I've got a group of lawyers. I've got a group of lawyers and law students at Widener that are volunteering their time and they're doing research on some of these issues, such as mortgage relief, the process for reassessment, and I'll add this to the list of questions for them. Because hopefully we're trying to organize the neighborhood so that they should have a voice in the process. And my concern is, what everybody needs to be clear about is there are no decisions being made. There's no proposal to demolish any homes. This is merely an engineering study for the purpose of seeking funding. And my question is, to whom have we applied? Under what agency have we applied to and for what funds?
There hasn't been any application, it's been discussion as to what's eligible, under whatever agency. So there has been HUD discussions, there's been FEMA discussions, PEMA discussions, DCED discussions. They're all of them.
Have any of them given any indication of the possibility of funding any of this?
I mean, there's certainly options. I don't know how much money, and again, we have to give them the costs and the report. No, the answer is no. Not yet, because we were still discussing it with them. They have to know the costs, and they have to understand what it is we're asking. Absolutely, tons of people.
I think we've been very clear about that. There have been no funds identified at this time to ameliorate the problem on South 14th Street, and we're not indicating otherwise. All we're doing is saying that we are resolved to trying to look to every possible source, and we feel fairly equipped to do that now with this study, with the Sinkhole Summit, and with the active conversations that we're having.
What will be the process that the city utilizes to involve the landlords and tenants and residents as you move forward after the summer? Will there be a newsletter? Will there, I mean, if it gets to the point you say, oh, look, we found $2 million, how are you going to involve, how will the decision be made, alternative 1 versus alternative 2?
I would say probably through this council committee, the Public Works Committee, coming back here and continuing to report. I think Chair Reed will have a commitment to asking us to constantly report, and we will come. And I think the next conversation is going to be on the additional work order, and we'll probably, hopefully, be set up for later in the month of November.
Let me just make a final suggestion. There are foundations that are out there. There's something called environmental justice, which I believe there should be money available if we think outside the box and get creative about green infrastructure and finding funds. Once the land bank gets set up, I believe they may have the power to raise money, maybe through the issuance of bonds, buy out the homes, clear out the neighborhood, and build a new low-income neighborhood in a blanket section of the city so that we have a win-win situation. And instead of paying a mortgage, they would be paying back debt service on bonds. So that's all. Thank you.
I think the issuance of bonds is very unlikely.
I'm Sheena Mosley. I'm originally from 1421 South 14th Street. There's still some of these are still residents, so they get the memos that y'all put on the door. But remember, my house is placard. Every meeting that I come to that city council has, y'all ask for a telephone number, an address. I have not gotten anything from y'all. Y'all got my address, y'all got my cell phone number, y'all got my email address. This meeting that was called, a lot of them don't know about. It was just my attorney got a link, and from the link, we just text each other. But it said that I get all my information from them on top of here. And I'm still a part of that 1421 or 14th Street residents. And I don't get no information, no nothing from none of you guys. You guys got my contact information. But I get it from them because they still care about me and my family. I can't say the same for the rest of you guys, but they still care about me and my family.
Sheena, are you coming to the summit on Friday?
Yeah, thanks for the news from them. They gave me heads up. But I'm not coming. I'll send my husband because I didn't have enough of a notice to let my job know. Because I teach kids, I can't let my other kids down and rely on somebody to give them the proper education they need. So I couldn't get off, so my husband will be.
Thank you. Do we have any more public comment?
When we bought our houses on 14th Street, we loved the city of Harrisburg, am I correct?
Right.
When you took office, you loved Harrisburg, right?
I still do, yes.
You still do?
We don't.
So, what are we going to do about this? I understand we just keep saying putting Band-Aids on it. We're not fixing it so it'll be livable for all of us. 14th Street was a neighborly neighborhood. It was one of the best blocks in the city of Harrisburg. I love being a homeowner. I got up and go to work every day. My kids love it up there. You know where I live at now? I pay a mortgage and rent that I can't even afford. But I'm still doing it because I can't let my kids down. I lived in a hotel
For 5 months, I lived in a hotel. And nobody gave, excuse my language, a damn about it. So I keep hearing, it's gonna take time, it's gonna take time. How much time is it gonna take? I understand there's processes, there's this, there's that. But would it be faster if it was a fatality? If one of them houses fell in, if we didn't open it, my wife didn't open the door that morning, and my front door fell in, and it got close to my house, and my whole structure would have fell in, my kids are still asleep. Would that have been enough to be faster? I've done everything. I sat back, I've not said a word. But all I keep hearing is, it's gonna take time. It can't be that much time and we're in a crisis. You're the leader of this city. We voted you in, so do something about it. We're fighting the fight. We show up, the same people show up every time because we love where we live. Half of us ain't there and half of us is still there. And every day we go home and we still think about the people that are still there. It don't stop. Like they say, we're one big family. And we continue to stay in contact with each other because if we don't, nobody will. I'm disgusted with this city. And I never felt that way. I'm a community person. I coach little youth football. I run a whole organization. I love what I do. I love the city of Harrisburg. But for this to happen to me and nobody go to bat for me and I go to bat for the city of Harrisburg every day, do you think that's fair?
I don't think any of this is fair. I think it's a tragic situation. I don't think that you should mistake a lack of financial resources for a lack of care, or a lack of desire to help. The reality of the situation is there may not be any solution available or coming. There may not be any funding coming to address that, period. All I can do is try my best to make that case and to bring resources to bear to the situation. I can't find $4 million magically. I wish I could, but we don't have those resources as a city to do it. We are reliant on the state and the federal government in assisting in this situation, period.
Only thing I gotta say to you, my man, after you just said that, you need to try harder.
I just want to piggyback on what he just said. My name is Denise Fahey and I have a home on 1415 South 14th Street. My story is this. When I first came to Harrisburg from New York, I had a choice of choosing New York or Harrisburg. I kind of find a city by looking it up on the internet. I'm basically an investor. I bought my first home in New York, in Harlem, New York, in 1994. So after that made a lot of money, I said, let me find another place that, it's black, basically, and that the city is looking to rebuild. And I found York on the news because they were going to build this big, I found York on the internet because they were going to build this baseball or whatever field. So I went to York and it was awful. And then the lady in York told me, well, Harrisburg's a little bit more ahead. Well, I came here and I bought 9 properties. What I found, I had a decision to choose. When I started losing money because of business, I had a decision to make. Which properties I was going to allow to foreclose. And I chose to keep the one on 14th Street. And I sold a lot of my properties, including Elizabethville. I foreclosed that. I foreclosed the one in Stilton because I felt that in Stilton, they didn't care about the investors. I came to Harrisburg, I had 2 properties here on 516 South 13th Street. And I decided to foreclose on that because again, they didn't care about investors. So I only kept the one on 14th Street because of the family on 14th Street. And now I feel like the city doesn't care about investors and they don't care about the homeowners. And I understand that you're trying, but now that I know more about the city, I believe that we don't get the help we deserve and we're not getting the respect we deserve because people really believe that everyone that lives on the property are not educated and they're basically people from the housing. And I cannot believe, like I said, the only reason I chose to keep South 14th Street was the family. These guys had children. I watched when you had your first child. And I know most people didn't see me, but now I moved out and I went back to what society says is a normal area that I was used to living in. But I still love my home. But moving to Harrisburg was like the worst decision. I should have went with York. I went with my original game plan. And I pray that Mr. Pappenfuse, that you guys really, really fight for the people at 14th Street. We understand that it's happening in Palmyra, but the Palmyra people are not here. We're the ones that push it and calling the news. Maria called the news just to keep on letting people know that we exist and we do care and we are homeowners. Homeowners just like any other $100,000 homeowners. I mean, I am part of every community event here in Harrisburg. I'm part of everything. We're doing a visual for the area because we really are a community and we feel we should be respected as homeowners in a community. I'm sorry I didn't have a question, but I just had to share that story.
First of all, my name is Serena Washington and I'm a 14th Street resident. I've been on that street for 22 years. This is just another bandage. The bandage that first was put on this street was when my father's truck went down into the first sinkhole in 2007. The street was never fixed properly then. Right now, I refuse to leave my home because my mother invested a lot of money in her home and now she's here. My father passed in February and she's a senior, retired, and she can't move back into her home. What are you going to do for the seniors on that street that is their livelihood? I don't intend to leave. I intend to be there until something is done. I work every day. I have never seen any of y'all on my street. And I'm home every Friday. Every Friday. And I'm the nosiest neighbor on the street. I am the neighborhood watch on our street. The bottom line is I haven't seen any of y'all there. And you know what? I'm here tonight coming from work looking for answers because I need to give my mother answers. Her mortgage company doesn't want to modify her loan. They want to short sell her home. Who's going to buy down here? We don't want to be there. But when you put your money into a community, you expect to be able to get something back. I wake up in the middle of the night, I go to the bathroom, I check the back, I check the front. We don't deserve to live like that. When you guys go home, you go to sleep, you sleep good. You get up, you go to work, you're refreshed. We aren't. And I work a multitude of shifts. Bottom line is we need better answers than the ones that you are giving us.
I really appreciate all the residents that came out and understand clearly how passionate you are, because to be displaced from your home, just to think that the winter's coming and the snow won't be plowed in front of your house. Nobody knows exactly how much snow is going to pile up in front of your house is disheartening. And I apologize, there's nothing from the legislative body that I can do except for continue to have these meetings. And I apologize, the notification for this meeting The short sight was from the city council, because this is a city council meeting. It wasn't the administration that did not notify you of this meeting. If we have another meeting in a public venue, I will do my best to make sure, if I have to go door to door myself, to get you that information, to make sure that you know that we're having another meeting. We do have we will have a follow-up for the expanded, Gannett Fleming expanded area that they're gonna have. But what I am gonna ask for the administration, last week the mayor asked me to come into his office to talk about LRTA. Last year, we passed tax abatement for some businesses and developments. And if you really want to see how government gets it right, we need to really be looking into tax abatement for the 14th Street residents until this problem is resolved. Because this is when we need to take care of our people. When I made the statement that the public is looking for, what can the government do for you? This is something that we can do. You know, we're always talking about investors. We want to give tax abatement to people that want to come in and invest. That's wonderful. But we need to take care of people when they have a problem such as this is real. We got people paying taxes on properties. We got people paying water on properties. We got people paying trash on properties that they're not living in. If we can make sure that we can take care of those instances, this is what we need to be focusing on. So before y'all start talking to me, Vice President Sandra Reed, about LRTA or any other tax abatement, please come to me with a resolution for 14th Street and what we can do to relieve these properties of taxes. Because I believe out of all of the things that we've discussed, that is in our power to do. It's just a matter of going to the county and finding out how it can be done. So I'm going to ask the administration for at least to look into that. We will have a follow-up meeting. I haven't scheduled it as of yet. Hopefully I will have it before Thanksgiving with the expanded area to find out exactly what they've come up with, and maybe we'll be able to have an answer to either yes we can or no we cannot provide some type of tax relief to you. That's the only thing I know from a legislative body, because that has to come through us to approve, if it's possible. I don't know if it's possible, but I'm going to ask and I'm going to push. Yes, sir.
I don't know if you're aware of that, but I know they're aware of it. 2 weeks ago, the gas companies come to start digging, put lines in. They drove on.
Can you please come up to the mic to ensure that we can hear you?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, when the gas company drove on 14th Street, started their digging. They drove up the street. As they drove, 2 sinkholes occurred by them driving up the street. I don't know if you was aware of that.
Thank you. So we do know that there's some ongoing problems. Last meeting we did discuss trash removal. Has that been moved? Has that been corrected? Have we decided how trash collection is going to be done in that area? Has there been any decisions? Because when you're talking about not plowing the front of the street, what about behind the streets where they park at? Is that area going to be able to be plowed? Is there any way to find that information out so that we can have it for the next meeting?
Yeah, we can find out for next meeting. I'm not exactly sure where the trash picks up, and we haven't determined that it wouldn't be plowed. I realize CRW doesn't want it plowed, and I do concur with them to an extent. We wouldn't want a plow truck falling through a hole either, but we'll definitely look into that for next meeting.
The reason why is because when you're talking about heavy equipment, there's not much more heavy equipment that we use on a daily basis than a packer truck, which is about one of the heaviest pieces of equipment that we use every day. We want to make sure that we're not contributing any more aggravation to these residents than we currently are. So if we can first figure out where trash collection, and I said this in the last meeting, that we may have to put up dumpsters or maybe have y'all move your trash, and I'm sorry that I didn't follow up with that, and I will make sure that I follow up to find out if there's any type of adjustment that may have to be made so that, we don't create a larger problem. But then going into the winter months, we need to find out, as far as snow removal, we cannot just not plow around an entire area. I can understand not plowing in front of the houses, but if we're going to eliminate trash removal because of the impact of the vehicles, because if the vehicles are coming down and creating more of a distress to the area, wouldn't that be the same situation if snow plows came down? Yeah, they pick it up in the rear, and that's what I'm talking about. So if the trucks are coming down and they're impacting those areas, would it have a problem? We need to find that out. Because now you're talking about having people possibly snowed in. If we're not able to plow the alleys or get those large trucks up and down those back alleys. So if it's not safe for the trash trucks.
We do have elderly people on the block as well.
That's what I was saying. They did the study on the back, but they don't have the results yet in the alleyway and on the side of the house.
So we're going to get you some answers to at least those types of situations, and hopefully we'll be able to, come up with some type of solution, workable solution, until we figure out the next step.
I'm Neil Grover, I'm the city solicitor. Sitting here right now, one of the things you each have the power on my own to do is to file a tax assessment appeal based on change of circumstance with the county. They hold a monthly day where they hear all the appeals, whether you're a church and a church under an exemption, but in my house, is it for whatever reason worth what it was? We just did one of these based on a building that was torn down, where they said, I don't have this building anymore. It doesn't mean it's tax-free from the county's perspective, but if the house is not functional as a home, it doesn't have the value it had when it was assessed previously. And so that's at least an avenue to start down, and that tax assessment appeal goes to both the county real estate tax, the city real estate tax, and the school district tax is the highest one. So it's an avenue to start down, which you have the ability to do anytime, to go there and do that. And we would support you with that. We go to those hearings every month now, and we would support that application if you go. Our office is there every time. We would have to do a little persuading with the county. But that is one element. That doesn't solve obviously all your problems. But it gives you some potential relief from what you have right now.
And why don't y'all do that? Why do
Because we don't have the right to apply for you. It's an individual property owner under state law has that right.
And what about those of us who pay ours early?
And what about the
money? Our taxes are paid.
So is mine. And my house is condemned. Mine was paid in January. My house came condemned March 20th. Well, April 9th. But the first sinkhole opened up March 20th.
Yeah, I'm not telling you it's an instant solution. When I said you go in now, get your assessment knocked down, and then the bill will not be coming as it was. I can't fix the problem of what you did already. I can try to fix each thing with what we have the power to do. I'm telling you, if you own a home, you have that power on your own right now to go in and make that application on your own. We cannot apply for an individual because we don't own the property.
But the sad part is for those of us who have already invested money into our property, talking about fences, windows, new furnaces, central air, the things that you have already invested to help raise your property value. We've lost that. It's lost. The bottom line is half of our insurance companies don't want to continue to insure us. I have a mortgage company that is talking about maybe a loan modification, if not a short sale. A short sale to who? Who's going to buy? Who's going to buy? Like I said, 7 years ago, when the first sinkhole opened, they put a bandage on it. We drive down that street for the past 7 years. They knew it was sinking. It was sinking, the dip was getting deeper and deeper. If you didn't know the street when you drove down, if you were going a little bit too fast, you could tear up the bottom of your car. Right now, my property has stair cracks in it. The sidewalk is lifting up. I have cracks in my living room wall that was not there. The bottom line is we're there. Where do we go? what we pay now, you can't go anywhere and live the way that we're accustomed to living without putting out more money. And for some of our seniors, that's not even an option. It really isn't. Let's be for real. We go to the grocery store, we gotta walk half a block to take our food in. We can't park in front of our homes. You know what I was told by the city when I went to get a street cleaning ticket taken away? How about parking a couple of blocks away? I asked the man, does he park a couple of blocks away? I come home some nights at 10 o'clock at night. I am not parking a couple of blocks away from my home. Give me the tickets. I'm out here to say
And since there's no further public comment, I appreciate you coming out.
And one of the things I like to know, we done discussed this numerous times too. With 14th Street being blocked off, it's ridiculous how these people drive through there and don't obey the stop sign. I'm sure you got an officer out there somewhere
Harrisburg Police does it
that
too.
can pay attention. You got your Harrisburg City police officers that don't even stop at the stop sign.
And I approached him and said so to him. You know what he said? It's not a stop sign here. And I said, you know what? You're right on camera right there. He looked and seen the camera and he said, oh, I'm sorry.
It makes no sense how they don't stop at the stop sign here. Because regardless, we still got people in there.
Because it's my vehicles the ones that get tore up time out of time. And guess what? I keep turning into the insurance company. They tell me just keep turning in because they're too lazy to write somebody a ticket for not stopping at the stop sign.
Like I said, we're going to have another meeting, and hopefully we'll be able to look at that tax abatement and look at it holistically from a city standpoint versus an individual homeowner standpoint. And hopefully we'll be able to come back with at least some answers as to where you put your trash, how you're supposed to safely evacuate your house in an emergency. What about fire protection? What about any of those large vehicles that we may have to have come down on streets? And is it going to be possible to be able to do those things? So we'll be able to get you those information. And when we do have our next meeting, I do recommend that it be in the public so that you don't have to pay for parking. And we will do our best to, from the city council standpoint, to have it, to get the notifications out as quickly as possible. And I do apologize for all of that. Real quick, and then we're going to adjourn.
I just got one thing. I know you're strong with public safety, and you see we got Jersey blocks to block our street, but you got cars that park in front of the Jersey blocks. That's illegal. If the fire department gotta come down there, what they gotta do, go knock on the door and ask where the cars, whose cars belong? Because you know what? Even though my house is condemned, that is still my house, and I don't have any neighbors on either side of me. But if one of these houses go up in flames, I would hope that y'all be able to get there and put some type of fire out and not have to decide whose cars or what the fire department will have to make a choice on going down the sidewalk. They can't go down the sidewalk.
We would definitely have public safety
Yeah,
look into
something
that.
ticketed, whatever. I mean, I still care about my little condemned home. And I just got one question for Mr. Wayne, because I want to know. On South 14th Street, I see this little dot, and that's on the back side of my property. Is that little dot, because it says sinkhole, is that just a typo, or is that telling me that I got a sinkhole in the back of my house? Because I've been telling y'all there was a sinkhole in the back of my house, but I got an 8-foot one underneath my home on top of the 12-foot one that y'all feel. Now, your geological study people didn't come up on the yard, but I have a geological report that I don't mind sharing with you that show that I got an 8-foot sinkhole underneath my home. But I want to know, this is the back side of my house. If that's a sinkhole, that's just a little typo going through that line, that dot. Because if it's a sinkhole underneath my house can go down in a day. I mean, there's no tenants on either side of me, but I do have neighbors on the opposite side. And if my house goes down, the structure is not going to prevent those other houses from not going down. I just want to know, is that a typo or is that really a dot on 1421? With the line goes across, there's a dot here. Does that dot indicate that there is a sinkhole, or is that just a little bit of dye that ran into it?
I don't see the dot.
Can I show you one?
See you later.
This is Clark's. See, this is my house. where it says negative 1. That is a single dot that's fading in? Or is that, I mean, I just want to know, it's the backside of my home. That's just a shadow? Okay, I just wanted to know, was there a sinkhole? Because, I mean,
Your home is right on the fault line.
right, but I had an 8-foot hole underneath my house, so it didn't go up on my leaf. But I had geological study done that say four paper that says I got an 8-foot hole underneath that part of the door. People came in, he read that report, he said, oh, they gotta go. We gotta get in this house. Because he read the geological report. There's an 8-foot hole underneath the home. Not the 12-foot that y'all feel, and not the one that y'all put the rocks under to prevent the little kids from falling in. We're talking about underneath the home itself. That's why I just want to make sure was that a shadow, a dot, or whatever. Because if so, that means there's a sinkhole in front of my home, underneath my home, and in the back of my home. That's what I wanted to know.
Thank you. No further questions. Call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.